And our very first story, national security is taking up investigations into how electricity distributor PDS Ghana Limited used what has been described as questionable means to win the bid as a new operator of the Electricity Company of Ghana. A high-powered delegation of experts is also expected to visit Qatar to conduct further investigations on the authenticity of some of the documents tendered during the bid process. It's the latest update in the suspension of the concessionaire agreement between the government of Ghana and PDS, which saw the company take over distribution of electricity to customers in the southern half of the country in February this year. Now, as a result, ECG has now been appointed the interim operator. How did we get to this point? Energy Minister Peter Mewu has the details in the following interview with Raymond Akwa.
The due diligence processes that have established this. The process of execution due diligence is an ongoing process.
Okay.
The trigger for the commencement of the concession itself, as you are aware, has both condition subsequent and condition precedent. And so that puts in some element of due diligence processes, even during the execution phase. So it is the execution phases that has brought out this particular findings by the agency.
So if I heard you right, we couldn't have actually done this prior to this starting work on March 1, 2019. We couldn't have done that.
Well, because of the timing, you should know that it's not quite easy to have come out with such a major findings. Findings always take time. Due diligence is a process. You might have a signal, but you want to go beyond all reasonable doubt to establish the validity of the signals you have picked. That cannot be an event. That can only be a process.
Throughout this process, the suspension that we currently have, do we know how long it's going to last?
I would not be in a position to tell you today, tomorrow, or next 1 week. Don't forget, when issues of fraud are detected, it goes a bit beyond the ordinary people like ourselves. I'll be presuming that definitely, which of course I know the security agencies will be top, undertaking further details, examinations, and then to conclude really and establish conclusively that what we are saying, it's really valid.
In fairness to them, could we have actually decided to hold on to the suspension until we finally have evidence in the fullest form to suggest that incontrovertibly these people set out to do this and they ended up doing it?
No, we couldn't have done that, because don't forget, ECG, it's a $1 billion company. It has a number of assets, and there's a continuous cash flow that goes through the daily operation of ECG. If we had just decided to wait, nobody knows what will happen during that short period. If it is true, and that this fraud that we're talking about, it's established, and then the agency, which is PDS, knew very well that, yes, of course, we have done that. They can decide to do anything before the suspension. And so government was that fast going in to forestall or to curtail any occurrence of any malfeasance that will occur during these processes. And that is why the suspension.
Now, this very fast developing story broke less than 24 hours ago, and we keep getting fresh details by the hour. I'm however being joined by Raymond Akwa, who spoke with the Energy Minister, and will break it all down for us with simple answers to my very simple questions. Thank you very much, Raymond. Now, what we know now is that ECG has once again taken over charge of the distribution of electricity to customers in the country, apart from those in the upper half of Ghana. And this is because government suspects some fraud took place during the competitive process for the selection of a concessionaire, which the winner, Meralco, gave birth to PDS.
PDS currently.
Now, let's explain. I want you to explain to us what this suspected fraud is.
So the winner of that particular bidding process was expected, as part of that particular process, to present two things.
Which is Meralco.
Yes, two things. It's very important things. The first one is what we call, they are both called demand guarantees. One, lease payment security, and BSA payment security. All of this put together is what you basically hold when the Meralco group runs away with our money and everything. We can go to the bank and say, this is like insurance to get our money back, or some part of our money back. Now, this is important, and according to what we know from what the other institutions have been saying, this is important because international transactions of this sort always are secured. It's actually a first step, and it's very important. Now, after we getting the security from Al Qut, signed by a gentleman that now we know is fraudulent, 2, has been suspended by Al Qut itself. How did we get to know this? We got this arrangement in March 1st, 2019. 5 months down the line, on July 16, 2 weeks ago, that is when a gentleman called Musa Haq, he works with that particular Qatari company called Al Qut, the insurance company. He wrote to us and told us that you dealt with the wrong person. So you don't have any insurance at all or security in the letters that you're supposed to have.
Wow.
So that's what alarmed us. Immediately, we sent our embassy there to go and talk to the person. We could identify 2 things. Indeed, the individual, Musa Haq, who sent us the alarm, exists. 2, he actually showed receipts that showed that he sent us the letters.
All right. Now, so this Musa Haq that you're referring to, who works with Al Qut, if you go to the website of Al Qut, you find him there.
Yeah.
He's with the company, and if you
actually, he's in management position too.
Yes. If you look at the profile of the management, he's there. It's indicated that he's there. Yeah.
Now, this individual was verified by our embassy there. We went with our representatives to go and check whether he's the one. And again, he also showed us the letter, the receipt for sending us the letter. That suggested that we dealt with the wrong person. That person is fraudulent and has been suspended by even their institution. Immediately, government was alarmed. This letter came in July 16. Now, on the 28th, there were a series of meetings through to the presidency, from the Ministry of Energy through to the Ministry of Finance, MEDA. All the parties that are relevant to this met and agreed we needed to act quickly. That's when we actually decided that we needed to make sure we take back ECG from PDS, suspend our concession with them.
So that's Musa Haq.
Yes, this is Musa Haq.
Indeed,
insurance. He, the Osman Musa Haq, is the one who wrote to us. Now, finally, after we verified first step, we decided to secure our assets. If you heard the minister say, we needed to quickly make sure, because PDS is collecting money. PDS is virtually in charge of the things that the ECG uses to collect money. We were afraid that we've been dealing with some form of a fraudulent institution, or an institution that's connected some fraud. For our own security, that is why we immediately announced that we have taken over, we have taken or suspended the concession and taken it and given it back to ECG.
All right.
So that is what happened immediately. Now, government says a team, a much more competent team, is going to engage Al Qut to find out exactly where the problem was. Was it an internal problem? It's even the Musa Haq person who sent us. So far as we're proud to Musa Haq coming on board, we thought we were dealing with legitimate representatives of the company. Is he really a legitimate representative of the company, regardless of where he appears on the website or whichever position he is? Because Musa Haq admits that the gentleman we are talking about, that gentleman works with them.
All right.
The one who sent us the Al Qut letter. That is where we are today. And the minister says in a couple of days, that team will still leave and do the final verification of the fraud.
All right. So I'd want you to walk us through what has happened since government announced the suspension of the PDS contract Tuesday night. So we saw the statement coming from the Ministry of Information, and then a lot of things, quite a number of things have happened.
Quickly, we also know that the Energy Commission had issued 2 statements. The Energy Commission is suspending the license it gave PDS to operate in the state.
Let's take a look at that statement from the Energy Commission cancelling. So we have that. Notice of suspension, cancellation of distribution license. And this is from the Energy Commission. It says the Energy Commission hereby issues notice of the suspension, cancellation of the electricity distribution license, and states it in accordance with Clause 7 of the licenses and of Section 19 of the Energy Commission Act 1997. It goes on and it breaks it all down, and it's quite detailed. So we're going to make it available on our Facebook pages and on the website of myjoyonline.com, so you can go there and get to read. And so we have this coming from the Energy Commission.
But within state itself, we know that there are meetings still ongoing on what next to do, especially after doing the things ought to do now. What state is beginning to do right now is to be able to move fast, establish whether there's a bigger problem, establish what ought to be secured, And indeed, the energy minister is telling everybody in this country that it is beyond administrative processes. It also has to do with fraud. They in the ministry cannot deal with fraud. Indeed, the Ministry of Finance cannot deal with fraud too. The people who are qualified to deal with fraud, the national security and the security agencies, they've been asked to start work. They are looking at not only people within Morocco, but the entirety of PDS to be able to determine the people who are complicit or participated in the exercise. And we know in Parliament there's a lot of activity going on there. Both minority, majority are agreeing to some form of a probe. And indeed, the minority insisting that some of the individuals within our government cooperated and they ought to be held responsible.
All right. Now, in addition to the first statement that came from the Energy Commission, the Energy Commission has released a second statement which appoints ECG as the interim operator. So this is the statement coming from the Energy Commission. It says appointment of Electricity Company of Ghana as interim operator to take charge of management and operation of electricity sale license. Again, it states the license issued to Power Distribution Services Ghana Limited. Says in accordance with clause 27 of the electricity retail sale license number states issued to Power Distribution Services Ghana Limited, the Energy Commission hereby appoints the Electricity Company of Ghana (ECG) as the interim operator of the retail sale functions in the Southern Distribution Zone, and that license number, and it states that. And this is also quite a detailed letter, and we can't take you through everything in that letter, but essentially it makes it clear that ECG is taking over. But these are some of the, let's look at this conclusion. In consequence of the above, PDS is to facilitate and provide ECG with the needed access to all billing systems, metering operations, payment accounts, etc., involved in the operation of the retail sales license. Key officers of both PDS and ECG are by this letter hereby invited to a meeting at the Energy Commission on Thursday, August 1 at 10 a.m. to resolve any outstanding issues relating to the appointment of ECG as interim operator. We trust that PDS and ECG will both cooperate fully to ensure that electricity consumers will not experience any disruption in service as a result of this situation. And this is key, that customers will not experience any disruption.
Again, the minister also stressed that this is, I mean, he says it's basically the same workers. The only difficulty is that management may have to meet and make some changes up there, but down to the person you went to buy your credit from for your meters, the same people are going to operate there.
All right. Now, we know that investigations are taking place to establish if there was fraud.
Yes.
What happens after the investigations?
So the minister is clear in his mind that if they establish fraud, he says, and there's a general legal term that says fraud vitiates all, the entire contract concession with PDS comes to an abrupt end if fraud is established.
All right. That is if it is established.
Yes. If it is not established, they're looking at two options on the table now. They go back to PDS to do the legitimate duties that they were doing with government and continue their operations. And there's a third option he also introduced. Government more likely will reconsider the relationship with PDS. It's either going to get another private sector participant or decide to do away with the entire concession agreement. In this case, they'll be calling the bluff of MEDA. And they are minded by that relationship with and MCC. And he said that they are minded by that relationship with the MCC. Let's listen to
the minister.
Is it true that a Ghanaian delegation is on its way to Qatar to do this further interrogation?
Yeah, a high-powered Ghanaian delegation was put together at the ministry in the last meeting that we had about 24 hours. But they haven't set off because there have been some new developments. And so maybe within the few weeks, a few days, they may go. So definitely Ghanaian delegations will be going.
So specifically, what will be their duty out there in Qatar? Who are they meeting and what are they seeking to verify?
I think the initial intention of that visit was to have some high-level meeting with ACUT. ACUT as the executing body that was supposed to deliver the payment security. The intention was to meet them at that higher level. Don't forget, we have done some checks, and though we were not there present, through the Ghana embassy, some exercises were conducted. And that is why this finding is coming out. Because when we got hold of this letter, since the document is fraud, the letter could also be fraud.
Okay.
And so that is why government didn't run into any actions, because we also want to go beyond. Anybody could see somewhere and write this letter and throw it out.
Because there's a question as to when you unveil this.
Precisely. So we decided to subject the letter to further due diligence process to establish the author of that letter, whether it is the right person then supposed to sign the letter. And this was done through the embassy, and they have come out clearly and written to us that yes, of course, we met a gentleman, Musa Hag, if I can quite remember the name, and he confirmed that yes, of course, I wrote this letter and I stood by the terms of the letter. Going forward, he did even state that the officer that executed the payment security has already been suspended. So that tells you how serious the issues currently are.
In this case, was there any Ghanaian official, be it minister, deputy, or any official of this state who failed to do what they were supposed to do, or actually is complicit in this fraud that's been mentioned?
It will be too early for me to come out with that conclusion.
The ECG that needed help, the ECG that required private sector participation, obviously because there was a problem somewhere, is the same ECG that's supposed to be running affairs now. Now, many know that essentially cars were rebranded and all of the things were changed. In fact, there are still some stuff of the ECG in the old ECG today. Some have moved into the new PDS. By this suspension, what has really changed? Is it just the top brass that's going to be changed, or there are going to be specific changes across the ECG and current PDS structures?
First of all, let me correct the impression that the coming into existence of this concession and a compact is not just because ECG, in quotes, has been claimed its incompetent or inefficiency have led to some of the costs that consumers are paying. The level of inefficiency that we think occur in the ECG, that is not the final reason why the PDS is coming, the compact is coming to address.
Not because they couldn't collect enough?
Not at all. The compact is also, it's part, but I want to say that we've gone beyond that. The compact gone beyond that to look at a bigger picture. You know, most of our infrastructure, as you are aware, there are still several conventional infrastructures that exist, old infrastructures that need to be changed. Transmission lines have been very weak. The bulk supply points, you know, are not very stable. Our metering processes have not been well regulated. So this involves some element of capital injection. So it is just not because of the inefficiency. So for somebody to think that, oh, you are bringing the same ECG back and therefore the inefficiency is going to continue, I may not be in a position to validate that assertion.
Okay, now, so the question also asked was whether or not there are going to be massive changes within the current structure of ECG, taking back the PDS used to be part of its unit into a different one.
No, not at all. Don't forget the when this new government took over the contracts from the previous regime. One of the instruction clauses was the fact that there's going to be a layout of some of the workers. This government insists that no, the workers will not be laid off. So PDS, as you see, largely is the same ECG workers. And so I will agree with you, this suspension that we are executing now through these processes, it is the management that we're looking at.
Right, so that was the Energy Minister, John Peter Amewu. So we've heard from the Minister, and we expect that there's still a lot that's going to be happening in the next few hours. Probably tomorrow we're going to hear some fresh details emerging.
And indeed, we are told that there are still high-level meetings going on to make sure that the transition is smooth, and also the other security institutions performing their functions locally. These are not people who are actually doing probes in Qatar, locally here in Ghana, on what has happened over the period and how to safeguard and secure the assets of the state.
All right, thank you very much, Raymond Aqua. Now, what has PDS said in all of this? They have issued a statement, and I'll share the statement with you in a bit. It says PDS has taken note of the statement issued by government through the Ministry of Information on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, acting for and on behalf of Government of Ghana and the Electricity Company of Ghana. PDS wishes to state for the record that it has always acted and will continue to act in good faith at all times. PDS will go through due process by complying with the terms of the transaction agreement executed between it and ECG on one hand and Government of Ghana through Ministry of Finance on the other hand. PDS also wishes to assure the Ghanaian public that it will not rush to put out any information until it has been sufficiently substantiated in the interests of safeguarding the transaction and the image of Ghana. Now, in all of this, Parliament has also been speaking. We have some MPs who have been speaking on this matter, and they are calling for a probe. We'll hear from Katie Hammond, who is on the Energy and Mines and Energy Committee.
Of us have been very unhappy with the way. There are other things that we've known about the challenges ECG is faced, even with their new status, with respect to collecting the money from PDS and the extent to which PDS has been an impediment. You can hear from the way I'm going on that I have not been the chairman of their fan club. I simply can't handle the way the PDS thing had gone about. They're taking this whole thing away from ECG and national asset. So I haven't been happy.
So now and that government says that they suspended the contract.
So to the credit of government, you see, I think you saying that we looked on. We didn't just look on. No, I mean, we made all these points. Now, to the credit of government took these matters into account, went on to, I wouldn't say on the frolic, but really zoomed in, I think, on the concerns raised by us, to the extent that now it has come out that these guys have perpetuated a gigantic fraud on the people of Ghana. That is the announcement. That is to the credit of government. The government didn't sit down unconcerned. Parliament didn't sit down unconcerned. We put our efforts together, invited the authorities to examine the concerns. I mean, some of the issues that are raised, particularly the capital input, particularly the guarantees and everything, the backstops that they had provided. Now we understand that government has done exactly that, and that is what has come up. And it is now been suspended. Is it abrogated or suspended?
It's suspended.
Well, it's suspended. Legally, it is fair. I mean, I think they got to suspend, investigate all these things, and then, of course, but I think they are going to abrogate it. But it shouldn't end there. If it is proved that indeed this group perpetuated what I call a gargantuan fraud, illegality on the state of Ghana, then people must be arrested, people must be prosecuted, and of course, when it comes to prosecution, you leave it at that. The court will decide what then to do. Right. We wouldn't want a situation where this matter is brushed under the carpet. No. I mean, our committee wouldn't accept that. There must be a very serious investigation.
Security should have been provided, verified, authenticated before the handing over of our assets on 1st March to PDS. We, the minority, have called on that. Civil society organizations, including IES, have called on government that the security provided by this miracle cannot be factual. It is paper security, not backed by liquidity. Whether it is true. So government all this while did not take the minority and the civil society organization serious.
So it's vindicated clearly.
So it's a vindication of the minority. And we believe that there is more to it than just the security.
But you think some people colluded?
We have also
with PDS.
You realize that they've been alleged fronting of individuals on behalf of the beneficial owners of the 51% local participation.
That's something you asked for right from the start.
Now, the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ASEP, is calling for the immediate interdiction of leadership of MIDA to prevent what it calls tampering with evidence, while investigations continue into allegations of fraud in the award of the contract to PDS. The energy think tank is also urging government to immediately audit the background of the beneficial owners of the PDS consortium. Addressing a news conference in Accra, Executive Director Ben Boache said MIDA compromised the process to create room for the PDS consortium to win the bid, even though they did not meet the conditions.
The situation, if confirmed by government's ongoing investigation, will represent significant embarrassment caused to Ghana by MIDA and IFC, who are paid to protect Ghana and ensure the efficient spending of U.S. public funds granted to Ghana. While ASEP commend government for quickly mobilizing the state apparatus to protect public interest, the following far-reaching actions are required. The need for immediate interdiction of the leadership of MIDA to prevent tampering with evidence that may be necessary to support the case of the state. Government should cease with immediate effect the consumption of advice from IFC on the transaction. This is because the IFC has proven incapable of defending the interests of its clients, in this case, Ghana government and MIDA. And number 3, government should immediately audit the background of the beneficial owners of the local partners in the PDS.
ASAP is also asking questions of members of parliament who approved the takeover contract, why they failed to insist on the bank guarantees instead of the insurance bond. Ben Boakye says the MPs failed to represent the interests of the people.
It is therefore unthinkable that MIDA and IFC could bend the processes to suit PDS, knowing that the effect of the bank guarantee and insurance bond are not the same. While the bank guarantee can be called upon without recourse, the same cannot be said about insurance bond. Parliament says that there should be bank guarantees. On what basis were they accepting insurance, bonds instead of bank guarantees? These are fundamental principles. I mean, you are giving away $4 billion a year, in cash flow, to a company that has not shown any capacity, to deliver on those terms. And these are fundamental questions we have to raise with, members of parliament who now think that they had a voice and were not heard. How were those voices raised in parliament? So there are fundamental questions that are beginning to emerge, with this PDS arrangement.
Now, the Millennium Development Authority, which is referred to as MIDA in this case, and which supervised the award of the concession to Meralco, or supervised the entire award process, is yet to comment on the matter. But this is not the very last of the story. We're in business. We're bringing you a bit more on that. We're still having ASAP speaking to the issue. But still ahead in the bulletin, as we take a break now, Parliament has approved the Finance Minister's request for an extra 6.3 billion cedis made during the mid-year budget review by the Finance Minister. Now, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia is unhappy there exist cases of extreme hunger, poverty and inequality in parts of the country 61 years after the country attained political independence. He described the situation as a scar on the conscience of the nation that must be addressed. Launching a 1 billion cedis green fund aimed at mobilizing financial resources to achieve targets set under the Sustainable Development Goals, Dr. Bawumia indicated government willingness to make access to education and other social amenities, injustice and inequalities key components of its development agenda.
That is, become a country without poverty, without hunger, a country where everyone has good health and quality education, where every person has decent work, and where peace and justice thrive. This is not idealism. These are aspirations that are indeed achievable. 60 years after independence and 25 years of a stable democracy, it is unacceptable that our people continue to suffer extreme forms of poverty and hunger. It is not right for our people to die from preventable diseases, and it is improper for our people to suffer inequality and injustice. This is why His Excellency the President attaches the greatest importance to the goals and cherishes so much the work that you are doing in support of their implementation.
The Green Fund is being championed by the private sector, led by some selected chief executives of leading firms in Ghana. President Akufo-Addo, who is co-chair of the SDGs, is tasked to mobilize political support towards realization of the goals. Presidential advisor on SDG, Dr. Eugene Entry, said Ghana must take a lead role in achieving the goals.
I believe I speak for His Excellency the President, and I also believe I speak for the Excellency the Vice President, and indeed the senior leadership of this country, when I say that this country, our country, must be a shining example in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is a challenge that we must all embrace. With the commitment of the President and the senior leadership in government, and backed by the quality of partnerships that we've established in support of the goals, including the partnership with you, which we cherish so much, I'm confident that we will achieve this noble objective.
Still at the Jubilee House, President Akufo-Addo has urged newly sworn-in Ghana's ambassador to Togo, Kofi Mensah Demetia, to be mindful of the sensitive nature of Togolese politics. The President demanded he maintains the highest standard of comportment in dealing with the Togolese system.
Our relations with Togo are very sensitive. I spent a lot of time in the last 2 years working there to try and help broker issues there. So they know me, and they are very conscious of what Ghana can and cannot do. We expect you to maintain very high standards in your comportment and in your engagement with the Togolese leaders. The President, His Excellency Ford Nassingbe, is a good friend of mine. Say a big hello to him when you meet with him. And that I'm looking forward to you helping to strengthen the bonds between the two of us.
Our government is considering legislation to ban export of all natural resources in their raw state. President Akufo-Addo announced this. The move is part of government's plan to add value to raw materials before export. There's already an existing legislation, but it only relates to export of bauxite. The President was responding to the concern by the Western Regional House of Chiefs, who are worried the processing of cocoa beans is putting local firms out of business and wants government intervention. Here's President of the House, Ojia Hoho Yao JB II.
Now, people appreciate the collaboration between your government and the Chinese government through the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Cocoa Board, for the establishment of a cocoa processing plant in the Sehui-Yoso constituency. Adding value to the raw beans will definitely create more jobs for the youth. We are honored by the allocation of 150 acres of land by the Sehui-Yoso Omanhene for this project. We have also noted the resuscitation of WAMCO in Sekendi Takoradi and applaud the hard work and steadfast focus of Honorable Joseph Boahin-Edu under your guidance. It is our hope that allied cottage industries will spring up to complement such institutions. Your Excellency, we are hereby respectfully bring to your notice a major challenge faced by some of the indigenous cocoa processors in the region. They have not reached the point of competing with the multinationals in the purchase of cocoa beans. They need a measure of protection and security. It is our hope that there will be a directive for a good percentage of the light crop beans to be set aside for the local companies to guarantee their future.
President Akufo-Addo indicated the country can only industrialize with law prohibiting export of raw materials.
All the commercial activities and the further developments in terms of the petrochemical industries should take place around the OAB. It makes a lot of sense, and we're going to do it. Just as we're going to bring the fertilizer plant to Jomoro. I said so when I was there, and I want to repeat it again. It will happen, definitely happen, and soon, definitely, yeah. So the challenge over cocoa processing for our domestic cocoa process, I think is a very important point you have made, and it's a point we have to pass on to the cocoa marketing, cocoa board, and the Ministry of Agriculture, how to make sure that our own processors other than the Cargills and the others also have access to quality beans. I'm happy. I was very happy when I went to Takoradi to see that WAMCO is back on its feet and is working well, and is in fact beginning to make money again for its shareholders, of which the government is a 40% minority shareholder there. But it's very good to see it up and running, and that now there is a regular and secure supply of beans for the cocoa. We have to go down that way. We have to go down the process, the path of processing our raw materials. We want to pass, I believe the law has now been passed, which is going to prohibit within the next 5 years the export of raw bauxite from Ghana.
The president also assured plans to develop the Western and Western North regions to compensate for its contribution to the national economy.
The development of the Western region and the Western North region does not match the contribution that you make to our national coffers and to the economy of our country. That we all know that. It is a fact. When you look at the infrastructure of the Western region, I include in that Western North, and the economic institutions from there, they do not in any way match the contribution that is coming to the national economy from the Western region. It will take some time to make that adjustment so that the contribution meets also the development. And for that, we are going to need your support in explaining that to our people in those areas, that it'll take some time, because we're coming from such a poor level. To be able to bring it up is not going to be done overnight. But I think that the commitment that has to be done is one certainly on the part of this government and of the party that brought this government to office, is something that we are very committed to. And I want you to know that all the efforts that we're making is in order to be able to bring this equivalence into reality.